Hey, sir, you need your green things. You need your headphones. I'm actually pretty loud, so he probably doesn't need the headphones, but you know. Awesome. Welcome to an introduction to Twilio functions. I'm not exaggerating when I say that I cannot express how excited I am to share this with you today. A few notes about this talk. This is a 30-minute talk. It's a 100-level talk. I'm going to be giving you an introduction to functions. Many of you will have follow-up questions, things that you'd like to know about functions. Please come find me and the functions team. Upstairs on the second floor, there's a booth that's entitled Developer Tools. So please come find us up there, and we will answer all of your questions. And this talk is targeted squarely at developers and builders. So you don't have to be a full-time software engineer to get value out of this talk, but you should feel comfortable reading and writing code. Oh, and this is an interactive presentation, so please take your cell phone out of your pocket, out of your purse, out of your backpack. I'm going to have you call a phone number in a little bit. I would strongly encourage you to do this. It's super fun. So my name is Carter Rabassa. I have a quick question. By show of hands, who saw my talk yesterday? OK, I won't recycle the jokes. That hurts me a little bit, but that's OK. So as some of you know, I'm a product manager here at Twilio. And I'm also the product manager for Twilio Functions. And I have the pleasure of serving the developer tools team. I'm going to talk about the dev tools team in just a minute. So I work remotely for Twilio from Seattle. And I'm married to my wife, Carrie. And we have two beautiful daughters, Emily there on the left and Catherine on the right. And as I mentioned, I serve the developer tools team. So this is a relatively new team here at Twilio. And our mission in life, the thing that gets us out of the bed in the morning, is to make it easy and fast for all of you to prototype your ideas, to make it easy and safe for you to build software, and to help you troubleshoot issues when they inevitably crop up. That's what we focus on the dev tools team. And functions fits squarely in that build category. Functions is all about helping you build Twilio applications faster, safer, and better. But first, let me talk about why we built functions. This is a pretty simplistic but accurate depiction of what it looks like to build a Twilio application. You've got the global telecommunications network on the left. The networks that ultimately deliver text messages and phone calls to handsets all over the world. And Twilio is integrated with this network. And then you've got your software on the right, whether it's running on a server or whether it's running on a mobile application. Either way, whether the software is on the server or in an app, it's going to communicate with Twilio over the public internet. And actually, your mobile application is probably going to communicate with your server over that same public internet. And I want to talk about mobile development for just a second. So imagine that you're an iOS developer, and you want to build an awesome new iOS application. And you've heard about Twilio Client, and you want to embed VoIP in your mobile application. Fantastic. So what happens? You go find the quick start for Twilio Client, and what do you see? The first thing that Twilio tells you to do is to download a web application in one of 6 languages. And then we ask you to go deploy that web application to some server somewhere. And it's not that you can't do this, right? You're a developer. Of course you can do this. But it slows you down. It creates friction. It's not something that you want to do. You want to build your iOS application. So this is a negative experience that a lot of mobile developers have had getting started with Twilio. Now, you might say, well, I'm not a mobile developer. I'm a web developer. I have no trouble standing up publicly addressable websites. It's what I do every single day. And I totally empathize with you. I'm a web developer. I feel the same way. But the public internet is constantly conspiring to disrupt the communication between Twilio and your web server. And there are things that are simply out of your control, like a DNS outage, or things that you didn't anticipate, like a big spike in load to your web server. And these aren't anecdotes. They're based on data. So this number right here, this almost 5 million number, is from April of 2017. 5 million times Twilio customers experienced errors that were visible to their end users. 5 million times someone called your number and it failed. 5 million times someone sent a text message to your application and it got dropped on the floor. And this happens to big customers and it happens to small customers. It happens to all kinds of people because software can be hard and the internet can be hard. And these are just some of the reasons that we created Twilio Functions. Functions are a serverless environment for you to write and run your Twilio applications. And functions aren't the first investment that Twilio has made in serverless, right? Last year, we launched TwimlBins. TwimlBins is a serverless product. TwimlBins enables developers who are building voice and SMS applications to build them without the need of a web server. And then even before TwimlBins, we shipped Twimlets back in like 2010 with a hilarious icon or logo. And Twimlets was a web-based GUI that let non-developers construct voice and SMS applications. These are all part of a serverless vision. They're all part of making it easy to build Twilio experiences without needing a web server. But let's talk about functions. What can you do with functions? Well, you can respond to Twilio Events. What is a Twilio event? A Twilio event is an incoming phone call or an incoming SMS. The Twilio platform has literally dozens of these events that can take place that normally you would use a webhook for. But functions can handle all of them. You can return access tokens. So this is what I was talking about with mobile SDKs. All mobile SDKs require access tokens to work. Access tokens are a way of granting temporary permissions for untrusted software to access the Twilio REST API. And you can use functions to create these tokens. And finally, you can invoke the REST API. We make it really easy within functions to invoke the Twilio REST API. So look, I don't want to go through slides. I want to build software, right? Like that's exactly how I want to show you how functions work. But before I can build an app, I have to think of an idea. So for anyone who knows me or anyone who was at my talk yesterday, what am I going to build? Just shout it out. No, not emojis. GIFs. Animated GIFs. Exactly. Animated GIFs are much more foolproof than emojis, I have learned. So what I want to build is I want to build an animated GIF experience. And let's go ahead and dive into it. So let me paint a picture. I'm going to have you all call a Twilio number, and it's going to ask you to enter a digit between 0 and 9. And then based on your digit, you're going to get back what I think is a hilarious animated GIF. So let's dive in and build this app. So this is the Twilio Runtime, and here is Twilio Functions. Now, before I dive in, I want to point your attention to the Getting Started page. So when you're getting started with functions, and I apologize, let me make this a little bigger. Just click on Getting Started. Oops. And there are a bunch of links that we provide to help you figure out like how to get started, right? There's a quick start, there's an FAQ. This is very useful information for building on Twilio Functions. But I'm going to go ahead and create my first function. And it's really easy to do. I'm going to click Create Function. I have, as Pat mentioned in his keynote, we preload functions with a bunch of templates that you can use to get started faster. We've got 6 now, but we'll have many, many more in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Hello Voice template because I want to create a voice application. So sweet. So I've created this. Let me give it a name, GIF-O-Rama, and I'm going to map it to the path /call. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is that every Twilio customer's runtime comes with a pre-configured domain. Let me zoom in on this. My domain is hilariousmonkey1234, which I totally picked myself, even though it sounds like something that maybe Martin would have assigned to me. So this is the domain for my Twilio runtime. And when I set a path, that basically creates a unique URL, right? The combination of the domain and the path give me a URL. The URL is how I invoke my function. The next thing I'd like to call your attention to is this checkbox for access control. Sorry. So when Twilio makes a request to your web server, or to your webhook, or to your function, it actually passes a Twilio signature. This is how your function or your webhook knows that the request is coming from Twilio. This is a very important part of securing your Twilio applications. Because we want functions to be easy, we baked it right in. Sorry, let me start over real quick. Awesome. So let me set the path. Now, for the purposes of prototyping, I want to turn this off. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck this. That way, I'll be able to copy and paste my URL directly into the browser so I can see that my app is working as I expect. Awesome. So I said that I want you to call a number and be able to enter some digits. So let me go ahead and get started right now. I'm going to use the gather verb, and I'm going to set an action to a function that I'm going to create in a second called send GIF. I'm going to specify the number of digits that I want to capture, and that's going to be 1. And I'm going to set a timeout to 5 seconds. Awesome. So this is what I'm going to use to gather input via the DTMF keys on your phone. And then I'm just going to say, when you call in, please enter a number between 0 and 9 for an awesome animated GIF. And people are calling my function. Awesome. Good stuff. Oh, hey, another thing I wanted to point out. You see the event dropdown right there? You can tell Twilio what kind of event your function is designed to handle. And what that means is, if I tell Twilio that this is for handling incoming calls, when I go to configure my phone number and I go to the SMS section of configuring that phone number, the ability to use this function won't even be there. So we won't let you make that kind of mistake. So awesome. So I think this code is good to go. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And now my function is being deployed to the Twilio runtime. And I'm actually going to go ahead and copy this URL and see that it works as I expect it to. And it does. This is exactly the TWIML that I was expecting. So let's go back to the runtime and start working on the second half of the application that I want to build. So now I need to write a function that's going to actually send you the animated GIF. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to use the blank template. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it send GIF. And here, what I want to do is I want to get a handle to the Twilio REST client. And I'm going to do that by using the context parameter. And I want to talk about this for a second. So let me zoom in. You'll notice every time Twilio invokes your function, there are 3 parameters that we pass in. We will never pass 2, and we'll never pass 4. We're always going to pass 3. The context parameter gives you information about the configuration of your Twilio runtime. Just think of this as like environment variables, like other stuff that you would use to configure your application. The event object is information about that specific invocation. So every HTTP parameter, whether it's in a post or in a GET, is going to be in that event object. So it's specific to the invocation. And then the last parameter is callback. So if you're comfortable, if you are familiar with writing Node, callback is what you use to return from the function when you're done. And by the way, that's exactly what functions are. Functions are just Node. Now you might be wondering, how can I have a Twilio client, a Twilio REST API client, if I haven't initialized it with my account SID and my auth token? How's that possible? Well, let me show you how that's possible. So over here, in the configure section of functions, there are 2 things I want to point out. One thing is this checkbox right here at the top, where you can enable your account SID and your auth token. if you check this box, two cool things are going to happen. One, the account SID and the auth token are going to be passed into the context variable. So you'll be able to reference them in your code. The second thing that happens is that we can create a Twilio REST API client, and we can pre-initialize it for you. So it's just there, ready to go. So the second thing that I mentioned before is the ability to create environment variables. So you can set completely arbitrary keys and values that will show up in your app. So I can go ahead and set foo, set it equal to bar, click away, and it's saved. And I can delete these environment variables just as easily. Awesome. So let's get back to my function. So that is how I have an initialized REST API client. Let's go ahead and use it to send you all an MMS. So client.messages.create. I'm going to pass in to as event.from, from as event.to, and now I need to send you a media URL. So let's go ahead and construct the URL. Now, I want to make sure I pre-curated some awesome animated GIFs, and I actually I saved them over here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, come back to my function, and paste in my list of GIFs. To say that I'm excited about this is an understatement. You might want to, if you're curious what Carter Jam 200 is, just hit 9 on your phone, and you'll find out. So cool. So now I need to construct the URL that I'm going to send you. Oh, and I need to do one more thing. var index. So when you press a number in the phone call, Twilio is going to post what you pressed to this function. And it's going to come in as a parameter called digits. And I need to actually parse that. So I'm going to use parse int to turn that single digit into an integer. And then down here, I can actually use that to construct the URL. So here's the URL to my domain. I'm going to point at assets. And then here, I'm going to say GIFs at index. Awesome. So this will send you the URL. This will send you the animated GIF that you've chosen. So I'm going to go ahead and set that in here. And now I just have to invoke my callback. And assuming that everything is successful, let's go ahead and create a thank you message. We'll say twiml.say thanks. Your GIF is on its way. Awesome. So I think that we are good to go here. So I'm going to go ahead and, sorry. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and deploy my function. All right. And now the moment of truth. Now I'm going to actually configure my phone number for all of you to call into. So that's easy. I'm going to go over to my phone numbers tab. I'm going to go ahead and reload this page. And what you'll see is the ability in the voice section to now choose from 3 options. You can now choose from webhook, twiml, or function. So I'm going to go ahead and select function, select GIForama, and save this. So now, if you could do me a favor and just call the number that you see on the screen, 512-233-6981.
Please enter a number between 0 and 9 for an awesome animated.
All right. So
Your tip is on its way.
all right. So I'm playing along. So hopefully you're all hearing my message. You're selecting a number of 0 through 9, and hopefully you're going to get an awesome animated GIF. In fact, can you guys clap if you're getting your animated GIFs? I got mine. Awesome. Sweet. Thank you. So Oh, and you might be wondering where those GIFs were coming from. So as Pat mentioned in the keynote, there's another part of the Twilio runtime that we shipped, and it's called assets. So these are just static files that I uploaded to assets. And you can reference all of them with the combination of your runtime domain and the name of the file. So I'll go ahead and, for people who didn't select 9, I'll show you what Carter Jam looks like. I was very happy that day. So awesome. So what are all of the features that we just walked through? Well, first of all, every runtime comes with a publicly accessible domain that you can use for invoking functions and storing assets. Functions come with pre-configured templates that make it faster and easier for you to build Twilio applications. You've got environment variables that you can set so that you can separate your code from your configuration. Built-in security checks so you don't accidentally build insecure Twilio applications. A built-in REST API client that's pre-initialized so you can get started faster. And as some of you noticed on the screen, real-time logging. You have access to console.log. And those logs are published to the web interface in real time for easier debugging. So why should you use functions as opposed to something else? Well, Twilio functions are just faster and safer for building Twilio applications. They're the perfect glue. A lot of you are probably thinking, look, we have our own stack. We have our own systems. I'll tell you a feature request that I hear all the time. There are customers that wish that Twilio would simply let you publish inbound SMS to their AWS SQS queue. There are tons of customers that would prefer not to use webhooks. They wish that the SMS information could simply get published into a queue. And with functions, you can do that. You can write all of the glue code to take these events and publish them to any queue or any API that you like. And functions scale up on demand. Sure, you can set up a dyno, you can set up an EC2 box, but those things can fall over if you're not ready for that scale. And functions auto-scale. What's different about functions? We optimized functions for making it easy to get started with Twilio. And that's really important when you're trying to validate a prototype or simply be productive. It's natively integrated into Twilio. You're going to find the ability to use functions in more and more parts of the Twilio platform. And it's secure by default. This is very important. We encourage all of our customers to secure their webhooks. But over and over again, they just don't. They just forget. And we wanted to bake this into the product. So functions, I'm really excited that Functions is out. I hope you all get a chance to play with it. Functions is in public beta. So I know that you're going to have a lot of thoughts and feedback on the product, and we can't wait to hear it. As I mentioned before, the Functions team is going to be upstairs on the second floor at the DevTools booth. So please come find us. We want to answer all of your questions about functions. My name is Carter Rabasa. You can reach me at carter@twilio.com. You can find me on Twitter at CRTR0. And thank you so much for attending my talk.